Filme Shilmy has been extremely fortunate to be on this spree of speaking with some supremely talented individuals, especially in their first UK exclusive interactions. And we are very delighted to have with us the director of some celebrated films like Gunjan Saxena, and now most recently his recent hit, Mr. and Mrs Mahi, Sharan Sharma. So thank you so much, Sharan, for joining us on Filme
Hi, Anuj,
Shilmy.
how are you?
Very
Thank you
well,
so
thank
much.
you. Pleasure is all ours. Thank you so much for joining us. I mean, look, Mr. and Mrs. Mahi is doing very well. At this moment in time, when I think big releases from the Hindi front have kind of slowed down a little bit, to see a very simple romantic drama, family drama, with a sports angle do well, how is it making you feel right now, Sharon? As obvious as this question sounds, but I would love to know your
Yeah.
perspective on it all.
No, I feel very, very grateful for the audiences, for the love they're giving the film, for the numbers that they're coming out in. I think it's very, very heartening and very, very exciting to see that people are kind of coming in with their families and kind of giving the film their love and kind of feeling the emotion of the film. Uh, it's super exciting because I mean, you make a film over a 3.5, 4 year time period, hoping that this day will happen when people do show up and kind of give you that love, especially a time in the industry when there are constant narratives about what kind of films will work and what won't. To then eventually realize that I think if you make a film with heart and with hard work and sincerity and kind of give it your all and you trust the universe, good things can happen.
Sure. Now, I think I'm gonna go by just looking at Gunjan Saxena. I mean, I know that was based on a true story, of course.
Right, right, right.
But going by that, and then Mr. and Mrs. Mahi, I think where you have uh something which is of national importance. So, for example, here you've got cricket in Mr. and Mrs. Mahi. Then obviously in
Right,
Gunjan
right,
Saxena, you talk about Air Force
right.
and flying planes and all of that. Um, what has really stricken you a chord with such storyline angles, and then also paving that with a very compelling emotional family drama?
Yeah. So I think for me on Gunjan, albeit on Mahi, for me Gunjan is not a film about a war. Similarly, Mahi is not a film about cricket. For me, I'm interested in the people, in the interpersonal dynamics, in their growth, in their mindset. So for me, Gunjan really was a girl and her dream of wanting to fly. It was a father-daughter story. Similarly, for me, Mahi was a husband-wife story. It's a journey of a boy kind of seeking validation, a boy with a pure heart and pure soul, who's kind of really weighed down by the insecurities and the pressures of the world, which I think is most people that I interact with are constantly seeking validation, wanting to be something in somebody else's eyes to really discover what it means to truly be happy. And at the same time, it's a story of a girl who's kind of just going along with the ways of the world, who eventually then finds her own voice. So for
Mm.
me, I'm really interested in the human story. I'm interested uh, in the growth of these characters. So that's the way I kind of looked at it, and that was personally I think a taste that is developing for myself that I'm also kind of seeing a natural curiosity towards. So in a way, both my first films are kind of falling under the bracket of people and their dreams, which is a zone that I personally am very curious about. It's a theme in other films that I've always enjoyed.
Mm.
Um, yeah, so I mean, that's what I have to say about that.
Now, I think the one thing that I am very fond of, and I think is very impressive, is the way Dharma package their films. I
Yeah,
think but I think with your films in particular, what I have found quite fascinating is that you seem to have really grasped that middle class voice in
right,
the
right, right.
ambitions, the emotional struggles, the dynamics in the family, and the lifestyles as well. It's like, for example, Badai Ho style
Correct,
of storytelling. But then
correct, correct.
also where Dharma comes in is that they are able to market the film a certain way.
Right.
Even of course with big studios like Zee Studios as well, also coming on board to support the film as well.
Right.
So again, for you as a storyteller, for you to amalgamate your voice as an ordinary person, but then to also customize it to suit the masses, how much of a would you say it's a bit of a dichotomy for you, or do you think it's something that really works in tandem with each other?
So to be very honest, I don't think what I've done, across my first two films is anything that is too tactical or too strategic.
Mm,
It's really, really coming from a very honest place within. and I'm kind of just trying to stick to my own instincts and my own convictions, and of the team around me. I think I stand here. I mean, I sit here before you, but there's a very strong team of collaborators who've been with me on Gunjan and now on Mahi, who have kind of helped me build the worlds of both these films. So coming back, I don't think it's such a strategic choice of okay, now we'll make a small town film, etc., and we'll package it a certain way. I don't think we kind of look at it that way. Uh, uh, I mean, I am somebody kind of born and brought up in Mumbai, in Bombay. So, I mean, I haven't lived in places like Lucknow and Jaipur, the places where my films have been set in. But I feel the kind of family that I come from, we're pretty simple, desi at heart Indian family with. So I feel that the kind of the way I've been raised, I feel like I have the ability to kind of connect with people through my stories in a way that is slightly simple. And But I mean, when it comes to kind of setting the film in a certain world, etc., I give a lot of credit to my writer Nikhil Mehrotra, who's written films like Dangal and Chechore. So I collaborated with him on Gunjan and here as well on Mahi. So I think he definitely helps me kind of set the film in a certain world, which then feels very authentic and grounded in that sense.
Hmm. And I think what I really liked about Mr. and Mrs. Mai is I think it's a very rare story where we've seen
Right,
about a married couple, basically having second chances in life in pursuing
right,
their dreams. I mean, of course, we've had films like Abhiman, for example, in the 70s, which again spoke about fame and the dysfunction and how it affects the functionality of a marriage. Even
right.
Ashki too, for that same matter. But I think here, what I was really impressed by is the simplicity in which you adapted in telling that story. There wasn't a sense where वो suddenly एक बड़ी superstar बन गई और फिर the jealousy kicks in. You
Correct,
could
correct,
you could
correct.
feel that growth of Raj's character, even Janvi's character as well.
Right,
I
right,
think
right.
when writing this story and script in particular, how conscious did you have to become for it to, like you said as well in your response earlier, about not just making it a film about cricket and bearing it into it being a sports film per se, and how important was it for you to flesh out these layered characters as well?
Yeah. So, I mean, for me and for Nikhil, we never set out to make a sports film. We didn't see it as a sports film or that kind of thing. So really, it was like this exploration of human psychology is what we were trying to go for with the film. And I mean, I don't even think we were trying to go for this idea of ego of the wife getting famous, etc., etc. I think what we were trying to tap into was this idea of the transactional nature of the world that we live in today. That if I do this for you, I expect this in return. And try to break that idea, because I think we're all kind of victims of that. That if I do this, I'll get this in return. I think that's kind of Mahendra's angst in the film as well. So we were trying to explore that idea of kind of really getting into the mind of somebody um, who has these wants and has these things that he wants from the world, but then realizes what he really needs is all within him. What he needs, he has. And it's this deeper theme that we were trying to explore, and kind of to explore this slightly deep theme in a slightly way that people are now telling me that it kind of connects in a simplistic way. I mean, it wasn't designed as a okay, let's go complex or simple on it. Again, I'm saying it's just a filmmaking for me is an extension of my instincts. So that's what we were trying to go for, really. Is not to kind of set it up as a sports film, but really go down this layer of depth and explore this all within the setup of a husband-wife story, within the setup of a against the backdrop of cricket. And very often I think when we set up to tell films about an achiever, the films are about the achiever. But I
Hmm.
think what made it exciting for Nikhil and me was that why don't we kind of make a film about an achiever, but make the film about the support system? That kind of gave something new to explore. I mean, in a way, you could say Gunjan is also a film about an achiever. But what kind of got us excited was, what if we dive into the mindset of the husband? Who is he? Why is he supporting her? What does he want? What is his growth? And kind of fleshing it out from there. And I think that was the kind of the starting point of the exploration of the writing and the thinking behind the film.
Correct. And I think again, I would love to showcase and highlight the parallels between the father and offspring dynamics. In Gunjan
Yes, yes,
Saxena,
yes.
it was like a very like Bharat Ki Beti type of a vibe,
Right, right,
right?
right,
That
right.
was going for Gunjan. And here, obviously, the dynamics between which is more in the spotlight, which is obviously between Rajkummar Rao and Kumud Mishra sir, is one of dysfunctionality. It's one
Yeah,
of in a way he suppresses his own child. He doesn't really
right.
support him at all. So for you
Correct, correct.
as a director as well, and you and Nikhil as writers as well, I mean, how important was it for you both to kind of like explore the paternal side and to really flesh
Yeah,
out this dynamic? Because I feel like, see, when there's so much stigma around father and sons anyway, so how important was it for you to again not to reiterate that whole narrative of it being a
yeah,
typical obnoxious Indian father, you know?
yeah. No, I feel like again, the whole father-son track is something that was very much at the heart of the film when we were writing about it and thinking about it. I think in India, especially, maybe across the world also, but definitely in India, I think father sons have a very interesting dynamic, and there's a very interesting undertone of things that play constantly. I'm actually very fortunate. I think my equation with my father is a lot like the Gunjan experience, where I have a super supportive father who's always encouraging me and kind of always giving me wings and always there to catch me when I fall. But it's something that I've observed with my friends, their dynamics with their parents, what I've seen across even other Indian films in general, that there is this kind of one-upmanship and this and sons wanting validations of their fathers, and fathers kind of sometimes kind of the baggage that they carry kind of reflects on their dynamics with their kids, boys and girls. So yeah, so that aspect of it was very keen for we were very keen to kind of try and explore that father-son equation. So for us, Mr. Mrs Mahi is one of those films where there's no obvious villain. Mahendra's villain in a way is his own mind,
Mm,
and his mind is become this way because of the environment he's raised in. So for me, the father was really reflective of the world, of the universe. And let me break it down for you a little bit. It's almost like the father represents the way the world works,
right.
where today's world really celebrates people, where the world kind of labels people in two categories, winners and losers.
Yeah.
I mean, that is the unfortunate reality of the world that we live in today.
Mm,
Either you're a success or you're a failure, and that thappa, that label is kind of put on you. So we wanted that father to kind of have to reflect that mindset, and imagine being raised by a father with that kind of mindset. It is going to affect your psyche. It is kind of going to put you it's going to cause a lot of scarring within your mental makeup and having to go through grow with that. So really, the father was kind of reflective of the world that we live in, and that kind of caused this turmoil within Mahendra. And then to go from kind of having this dynamic of celebrating or labeling people as winners and losers, successes and failures, to eventually saying throw these labels away. Just like when you look beyond these labels and you see what you have, don't chase success, experience joy. I think these deeper layers is what we are trying to kind of arrive at. And I think Hardayal's character, the father's character, was really representative of these values that we see in the universe in a broader sense, and I've seen in a lot of people I've interacted with in general.
mhm. There's a certain sense of euphoria, I think, that one feels towards the end of the film.
Yeah.
And I think it's, I felt like this when I watched 12 Fail recently. When you just,
Oh, wow.
I don't know,
Nice.
just seeing stories of a common person and fighting
Yeah.
to to reach success, to overcome this, like you said, this kind of structured world, and a sort of backward world, or what they think of what is success. There's something just so personal about it. And I think what really also re-emphasizes this whole notion of euphoria, I think also is perhaps not just the background score and the camera work, but I think the color schemes. Like for
Right,
example,
right.
in 12th Fail, I'm not sure if you've seen the film, but
Of course I
um,
have. I love
there
the
was
film.
yeah, there was like a lot of yellows that were used in the
Yeah.
film. And again, I found this with Mr. and Mrs. Mahi as well. I especially when it comes to emphasizing the emotions of certain characters. Like there's one scene where, don't want to spoil it for the viewers, but when there's like one
Yeah.
confrontational scene between Rajkummar Rao and Janhvi, right? There is by the nets, there's literally lots of blues and greens that you have,
Yeah. Yeah.
which again, green can also emphasize and showcase envy as well.
Right.
So when
Right.
it came to the color palette, how conscious were you in choosing colors which often is synonymous with the sort of rural sort of representation, but as well as symbolic of the emotion. So how
Yeah.
much of a fusion was that for you?
Yeah. No, there was definitely a very specific design in a sense that we wanted there to be a specific design, but for the audience to not feel it in that obvious sense. So I think a lot of credit again goes to my DOP Anay Goswami, production designer Sharanya, costume designers Anayata, Varsha, Shilpa, to kind of come together to give the film that kind of very design palette, but hopefully in a more in a sense it didn't come in the way of the storytelling, but invisibly enhance the emotion that we were kind of going for. So obviously, the idea was that Mahendra's character really was somebody who you see come from darkness to light, and we wanted to kind of reflect that visually in the world. So there's a lot of earthy tones and dull greens in the house that he lives in. Similarly, when we kind of went into the cricket, we went to the outdoor. We wanted a lot of the magic hours. We wanted a lot of the beautiful sun kind of coming through in the film. When Mahendra kind of reflects on his younger days, we wanted that to feel full of nostalgia, full of kind of when you look back at great memories in your life, it feels almost magical and surreal. So definitely there was a very clear choice about the kind of palette and the kind of color that we were kind of chasing. I mean, honestly speaking, don't mean to intellectualize it too much, but at a very basic level, I really wanted the film to feel like a warm hug, that warmth
Mm.
of a comforting hug, that feeling of feeling lighter, feeling more hopeful, feeling a little bit enlightened in a certain sense, you know.
Mm.
So we that was the idea that we're kind of all trying to create through the course of the film.
Indeed, definitely. No, it felt like that. And another symbolic scene, which I want to talk about, and I'm not going to say which position or where it comes in the
Right, right,
film,
right,
because I
right,
obviously want people who haven't seen the film to still watch it, of course.
right,
But there's a sequence where there's like this barricaded fence in a stadium, and Rajkummar Rao is watching, and there's like a really close up that you have where you can see the bars and the chains that are there, or whatever it's called, that are there, but you can see his expressions, and it captures his expressions at every point. um
right, right.
that is so symbolic, and again showing, like you said, that repression and that suppression that he has. And I know
Correct.
it wasn't forced, and I think that's the beauty of it. It wasn't forced,
Mhm.
but again,
Right, right,
also there must have been some prompt for you as a filmmaker to choose these angles, to choose these expressions, to choose that certain lighting and color schemes as well. So
right, right,
if you
right.
could dissect that scene in particular and your vision as a whole, I think it'll be really
Right.
nice, you know.
A lot of credit to my DOP, Anay Goswami. I feel I've learned a lot from him through the course of the film in terms of even staging, in terms of the things that you're exactly speaking about. So the idea really in that particular match was that when you kind of see the sequence, Mahendra's position is kind of moving, and we want to kind of bring them closer together. Initially, maybe he's like further away. At a certain point, he's standing by the grill, but there is that kind of barrier between them that needs to be broken. So we were trying to go for that angle of what is the match really representing at the end. It's not so much about the cricket; it's more about will the husband and wife kind of come together, and that kind of fencing really allowed for that kind of subtext to kind of play out. Interestingly, is what we thought. And obviously, I mean, from a framing perspective, when you have something in the foreground, any DOP will kind of be excited to shoot through something. It kind of just adds certain amount of magic when you're filming. So nothing rocket science about it. Pretty much in that sense of wanting to keep that kind of distance between them. And I mean, logically, and on a cricket field, he can't be on the field. We kind of do take that leap of faith at one point, but we wanted to kind of figure out how strategically we can kind of place him. But yeah, I mean, a lot of the film, in terms of the way it's been shot, again, a lot of credit to my DOP in terms of the choice of using certain kind of a handheld approach to create tension in certain scenes, which I was very excited about. The certain kind of lighting patterns that he's created, certain kind of lensing. We shot the film on anamorphic lenses where you kind of got a bigger sense. I feel you were able to get closer to actor faces and go deeper into their souls, and yet kind of get a lot of width in frame. So yeah, I mean, stuff like that is something that we made a conscious choice about through and through the film.
It almost felt like a very subtle love letter to Kabhi Khushi Kabhi Gum, to be
Oh,
honest.
really? Okay.
Yes, I'll explain why. So,
Yeah.
I mean, ek to you sampled Dekha Tenu Pehli Pehli Baar mein.
Right.
Honestly, I'll be honest with you, Sharon. When I first heard it, I was like, hmm, this is such a classic song.
Right. Right. Right.
Yeah, I wasn't so sure about it, but I don't know. After watching the film, it's actually grown on me a lot. So I just wanted to just
Right.
throw that in there.
Sure. Sure. Sure.
So you got that reference. The way the film begins, um, and the way you have a voiceover, I think that's also there.
Right. Right. Right.
Again,
Right.
it's kind of reminiscent of how Kabhi Khushi Kabhi Gum begins,
Correct. Correct.
with
Correct.
the
Correct.
cricket
Correct.
match. Then again, you have this whole dysfunctional father and son family
Correct.
drama, which Kabhi
Correct.
Khushi
Correct.
Kabhi
Correct.
Gum is all about. There's also a
Okay. Okay.
Kalhona reference you have. So again, were these
So,
your
yeah.
decisions, or was this more
Yeah.
of a Dharma thing
Yeah.
to make it
No, I
more
mean,
a Dharma film?
no, no. I mean, the way we work with Karan sir is that he really gives his directors complete freedom. Like
Hmm.
he's there with you. He's very creatively involved, but he wants you to kind of trust your instincts and go with your convictions. And that was the case on Mahi as well. So, I mean, I'm very thank you for these insights that you've been able to find certain parallels. It's very sweet of you to kind of draw those connections. It wasn't very specific and designed. So I'll speak about Dekha Tenu first. Honestly, when I heard it while filming, we didn't have that song. My
Right.
music supervisor Azim kind of brought it to me. The brief to him was really to that. How do we find this like beautiful, soulful love song which has like an evergreen melody? That was really the reference. We were chasing melodies on this album. Not so much the sound and the beats. We wanted pure melodies. And when he got Dekha Tenu to me, I mean, I was completely like just blown away because. For me, like I think I've said this before, I didn't see it as a recreation. I felt it was like a creative experiment gone right. It felt like there's a lot of creativity at play to kind of pick up the antra melody of a song and the antra of a song and expand it into a whole song itself. So I thought it was like somebody
Yeah.
being really clever and really creative to kind of give it this spin. So we were very excited about the song instantly when we heard it. And I mean, to be very honest, Anuj, I'm somebody who is like I grew up watching Dharma films and
Hmm.
being in
Yeah.
love with Dharma films. Right from all of Karan sir's films, from Kuch Kuch Hota Hai to Kabhi Khushi Kabhi Gum. I love Kalona. It's one of my favorite films of all time. And
Hmm.
eventually, a film like A Wake Up Sid, which I saw, and then I landed up uh, uh, working at Dharma. So I'm somebody who was always kind of drawn towards the films the company made as a kid growing up watching films. There's something about the family values, there's something about the deep emotional core of those films that really always appeal to me. So subliminally, I think all these films are a very deep part of who I am and my taste and my outlook towards films, etc. So there'll be no particular specific way that okay, now we will do this or take this from this film, but I'm sure it's all deep within me, and it has to come out in some form or the other. But it wasn't a conscious choice. Let me put it that way.
Hmm. Now, I think the beautiful thing about Janvi and Raj is that they have such an organic chemistry. So the fact that they have this comfort together already, did that make your job a little bit easier as a director, but you're not having to make a complete effort into developing the chemistry and the camaraderie between them?
Yeah. Oh yes, 100%. I think they both have this kind of equation and comfort and a lot of respect for each other. I know, like when Janvi got a chance to work with Raj on Ruhi at that time, we were shooting Gunjan, and she was literally jumping. Like it was a very, very big deal for her to get the chance to work with Raj back then. And I know that Raj really has a lot of respect for Janvi's work ethic and the amount of effort that she puts in. So I know that there's a general, natural good tuning between them. And I actually feel as people and as actors, they both have this real deep sense of innocence to them. They
Yes.
both have a very pure soul and a sense of honesty that they kind of bring to the screen. And so, actually, when I saw them together in our look test, and then eventually when we started filming, they just seem to fit so naturally in a sense that, like for me, Mahendra and Mahima in their happy moments were like these two 12-year-olds being goofy and silly together in a park. They have this really childish, sweet friendship romance that we were trying to build on. And complete credit to them for kind of bringing that sense of innocence to the parts. And I think they really complement each other in that sense. I think they really, really have the ability to complement each other. Even the way they worked on set, I think that whenever Janvi's in a scene with a terrific actor, it always lifts her to kind of bring out the best in her. And Raj was always there. Even there were times when we were filming maybe just with Janhvi, he was always there on set to support, to encourage. I mean, he was really that kind of rock for the entire team, and I think he brought out the best in Janhvi and the entire team. I would say massively. So if I had to put down, their chemistry comes from the fact that they both purely love cinema, and that's it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, Sharan, I think your journey has been quite fascinating. You began when it comes to emotional and sort of feel good factors. I mean, except for Ae Dil Hai Mushkil, which you worked on as an AD, you also worked on
Right.
Yeh Jawani Hai Deewani, which is
Yeah.
honestly for me like that is the testament to romantic comedies, drama,
Right.
feel good factors, coming of age. Um, the fact that it's 11 years since obviously that film released and it was your first, I think your first
Right.
official gig, right, as an
Yes.
AD.
Yes. As an AD. Yeah.
How would you feel like you've evolved from learning the tricks of the trade then to now actually headlining your own films? What would you say has been your biggest growth as a storyteller? And has it always been as rosy as one thinks it is? Because clearly to get a Gunjan or to get a which wasn't an easy ride, which I will talk about as well, and even a
Yeah.
Mr. and Mrs. Mahi, I mean, there's been a lot of hard work that's gone into it. So if
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
could talk
Yeah.
to me about that, that'll be great.
Yeah. So, I mean, I always look at it like I went to, first I went to the Ayan Mukherjee Film School, and then I went to the Karan Johar Film School. And when I kind of graduated from there, my journey started. And I mean, I couldn't have asked for the like two greater teachers, mentors, gurus, role models in my life. I mean, the way they've nurtured me and allowed me to grow. I mean, like massive, massive respect for them, and I genuinely like kind of look up to them as directors, and then to work with them has been a very big deal in my life. So I very strongly feel that whatever I do as a director is kind of things that I've learned from Ayan and Karan sir, who are different in their work processes, but both come from this deep sense of pure storytelling, emotional storytelling, and very ambitious about the how their story should impact an audience. So I feel everything I've learned is really from watching them at work and trying to pick up what works for me, because when you work so deeply with someone, you kind of start understanding how they think, what are the processes needed to have in place to kind of arrive at a set. How do you write? How do you cast? How do you go about making your music? What is background music? How do you kind of work and create a background score? What is an ideal edit process? So because I was so deeply involved in both those films, from even before, from the writing till the final delivery of the film, I feel I was able to kind of really get that deep sense of understanding their processes and trying to then adapt to see what are my instincts, what are my convictions. So I mean, everything I've learned, and I think everything that I will do in the future also is kind of really rooted in kind of what I observed and what I learned working with them. See, I'm very lucky that if someone had to look at my career, it would look pretty like straightforward. I graduated from college, landed up at Dharma, worked on Jawani, worked on Ae Dil, and a year or two after that, I got my first film and now my second. But within that journey, there's been so to start with. Sometimes I feel I'm extremely grateful that it's been um, in a certain sense, it's come very organically. Like there was no reason for Ayan Mukherjee to reply to a fan mail that I sent him to then land up at Yeh Jawani. I didn't know him before. I didn't know anyone at Dharma before. So a lot of things have aligned in that sense because of Ayan helped me get me a job on Karan sir's film. Karan sir at the end of Ae Dil told me that I think it's time for you to try to think and develop on your own. So it's kind of happened in that sense. Obviously, along the journey, there have been a lot of things that I felt were extremely challenging, but a slightly philosophical take on this, that I really feel like what didn't work for you worked out for you. And
Mm.
I'm at this point really because of everything that didn't work out in a certain sense. And Janvi and me would always talk about this quote saying that the obstacles create the path. And really, on both my films, I feel like there have been so many obstacles that has eventually led to where I am today, which I'm really happy with, in that sense. So, I mean, yeah, it's been that kind of journey for me.
Wow, that's amazing. But I think Gunjan obviously it was supposed to have a theatrical release.
Right, right, right,
But then obviously the pandemic happened and then it had to
right,
go on
right, right.
Netflix. So I think for you as your first film, I mean obviously very आपके भी कुछ अरमान होंगे, ambitions होंगे,
Hmm.
इन सब चीजों को लेके, अपने film career को लेके. But when एक ऐसा googly life फेंकती है आप पे at
Yeah.
that point where you're having to change tactics, you're having to adapt to this new normal. Because I still remember we did Janvi's interview via virtual. In fact, that was one of the few initial Zoom interviews that we did in
Right.
2020.
Right. Right.
So how did that make you really introspect on the very fragility nature of life, and even you as a filmmaker as well, that has to adapt to things differently, because it was obviously an uncertain time at that point,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, obviously, like Gunjan was made for a theatrical experience. COVID hit, and then life changed. And initially, I mean, we had no clue how it's going to pan out. Do we keep waiting it out, etc., etc. But I knew that when eventually when Karan sir told me that we're going down the Netflix route, I was super excited because I knew the value the experience would give us. And when I know 200% that when Karan sir kind of makes a decision, he always knows what's best for the film and best for me. So I am in safe and secure hands, and that's the way I kind of go about things. But to be, very honest, the whole experience of releasing Gunjan on Netflix, in a way, inspired the thought of Mahi. And I'll tell you a little bit about that. So, like you said, when the film was releasing on Netflix, and this constant chatter from the industry, people around you who are telling you things like, oh, you're not going to get that Friday release, theatrical nahi milega, all those things that are spoken,
Mm.
it didn't affect me very deeply, but it made me introspect. And I think what I really took out from the experience, and it's a very honest confession, that why do we make films? Do we make films for the high of that Friday, or do we make films for the high that we get every day of doing it? And I think my honest answer on that was that, okay, I didn't get that theatrical experience. I got a great Netflix release that I'm happy with. But for me, Gunjan is 3 years of every day of 3 years of joy. So the fact that the process is the prize rather than what you get in return. So you're trying to, I think maybe you're getting what I'm trying to go for. That
Yeah, exactly.
this whole idea of filmmaking not being a transactional art form,
Yes,
and filmmaking is the prize,
the art.
really is
Yeah.
what stayed with me, and that eventually then inspired the deep underlying theme of Mahi, that it's not about what you get in return. The process is the prize, and that is something that's how the
Mm.
deeper thought of Mahi kind of came through, and now here we are. So one
Sure,
thing led to the next.
sure. And I think if we're going by the trends of last year, I think what people are quite yearning for now are stories which are introspective. They
Yeah.
stir emotions. But at the same time, it goes back to an extent what Hindi cinema traditionally was about. Stories which are rooted yet commercial in its
Right.
approach.
Right. Right.
Um, Fact in Point, or Lapata Ladies, Phil. Um, Even Rocky Orani, which again tries to sort of talk about the whole NRI sort of appeal of Karan Johar storytelling, as we all know.
Right. Right. Right.
But it was still very rooted in its approach, in the
Right.
sense of what the topics were about. Um, I think this year, given that we saw that trend and we were very excited to see Hindi cinema making its big thunderous comeback, it's quietened down a lot,
Yeah.
actually.
Hmm.
The market
Hmm.
is, I think it's very unpredictable at the moment, and it's very
Right.
much up
Right.
in
Right.
the air. But rather than focusing on the negative side of it, I think what I would love to know is that, given that we've got Mr. and Mrs. Mahi, and like I said, Lapata Ladies recently that did really well, do you think it's now time for the Hindi markets to kind of like really uh internalize and actually try and make more films which are rooted in its approach, without it trying to be marketed as rooted, if you get what I mean? So in a sense where it's actually, it is grounded, it's telling the story of the Aam Janta, but it's not
Right.
being used as a tick box exercise to just reach out
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
make money. Do
Yeah.
you get what I
Yeah.
mean?
I understand that. I feel like, to be very honest, this whole idea of trends and what's working in the Hindi film industry, I think it's a lot of just conversation. When without much of reality to it. Like, I think what I've kind of really realized over the years working as an AD and even now is that the beauty of the film industry is that nobody knows anything. We all have theories. We all have theories of what can work and what can't work, but then there'll be that one film that just connects to an audience and just flies. There's this narrative of, oh, action films, big scale, spectacle, blah blah blah, and then comes a 12th fail, and it's the best film, one of the best films I've seen in the last decade. If like it's one of my favorite films. So yeah, I mean, so really, I feel like you, I feel every film that works, be it an intimate film or a big scale film, be it a rooted film or be it a whatever film, is that director's honest film. The minute a director or a storyteller tries to cater to trends and starts designing the film to what he thinks the audience wants, you're guessing, and then you can just, I mean, I feel that's a very tricky situation to go down. So yeah, I mean, comes back to, I really feel that a lot of the decisions are taken obviously in the industry by business people who are interpreting trends and expecting where the market will go. But every few months, something new happens, and then there's a new trend, and then there's a whole new discussion till the next trend is broken. So these trends, I mean, that's a very my honest take on it.
You're right.
That I feel that any film that works, a film that has done 500 crores or a film that has done 20 crores and has been loved by the critics, you know what I mean to say, any film that works, I feel, is a very honest story telling by the director, and it has come from a very honest and sincere place, be it them playing it up or playing it down in terms of the pitching of the film. An intimate film needs as much conviction as a scale film, in that sense, if you know what I mean. But that's what I believe. I don't believe that there's any director who makes a big blockbuster guessing trends and guessing what the audience wants. You know, it's all coming from a place, because I strongly feel a director can make a film that only they can make. I can't pretend to be somebody else. Nobody else can pretend to be somebody else. The time you kind of lose your own voice, what are you left with, really? You know? Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think you're right. But I think it was also a big reminder, because I think corporate systems are so stuck in the rut. They don't know how to move on to the times because they're so heavily focused on making money. And I think this is why, it's very important as well. And I'm kind of happy that at least, films like Lapata Ladies and 12th Floor are getting the traction, and Mr. and Mrs. Mahi, for that matter, are also getting that footfalls, because it's an indication that yes, whilst these big corporate studios and still want to get money, but I think it's also them kind of understanding and seeing where the pulse of the audience is and where the times are leading into, right?
Yeah.
So I think,
I mean, sorry, I'll just say, I mean, like, I'm somebody who's actually very box office savvy. Like, I'm fully immersed in the box office data. I have my own Excel sheets and everything. Like, I'm a box office nerd. So I completely understand the overall picture of what has changed and where things are going in a broader sense. But then every time I see a film like a 12th Fail, or there comes a Lapata Ladies, or there comes a Shrikant, I take a lot of heart from it, that, it's not so clear cut. The trends are not so clear cut. If you make a film with heart, there is an audience that is going to come for it. So that's my positive takeaway every time a film like this kind of works. It gives a lot of hope to a lot of storytellers.
yeah, definitely, for sure. But I think also, Sharon, I've been seeing this trend of storytellers or filmmakers who've begun really speaking about contemporary love stories or family dramas, rom-coms. They're now sort of faced with the challenge of helming really big budgeted action, event films and franchises. Hypothetical question, but should you be put into that situation, how would you feel? Do you think you're ready for such challenges? And if not, what sort of stories would you be keen on telling should you have the power to?
So I mean, I don't have a strong point of view on this. I think it's very important for every artist to kind of to grow, take up new challenges, and get out of your comfort zone as such. So I mean, and like for example, like I know that if somebody told me, here's a script of a big action film, that's a big spectacle film, like, what I mean to say, every director has their own strengths and weaknesses that they bring to that film. So you can never take the director out of that film. So if tomorrow I'm told, here's a good script, and I really connect to a script that is a big action film, in that sense, spectacle film, I know that I will be chasing the human story within that also. You know what I mean to say? So I think it is very important for an artist to kind of to not be stuck in their comfort zone and constantly explore. Because the whole fun of filmmaking is that with every film we kind of go on a 3-year journey. Like for me, filmmaking is not a job; it's a lifestyle. Like for the last 3-4 years, I've been living in the world of Mr. Mahi, Mr. Mrs Mahi, and before that, Gunjan. So coming back to that, I think every creative artist is free to explore what they want to. I'm at a point right now where I'm actually quite blank about what I'm going to do next. I've been so immersed in the world of Mahi that I'm kind of sitting on a blank page right now, trying to see what the next inspiration is. So I don't have a clear roadmap ahead, but I know that I think I'll always be interested in the human stories, in the human drama, and kind of chasing that kind of warmth that I love. So my favorite films are films like Life is Beautiful, Pursuit of Happiness, Jo Jeeta Wahi Sikandar, Kabhi Aa Kabhi Na. Yeah. This is my the films that I kind of always connect to. Lion King. These are my favorite films. So I don't think I can get that out of my system. So I'm happy to explore many kinds of worlds, but I think there'll be that feeling that I'm always chasing in a film.
I think feel-good human interest stories are in need of the hour, and I think because Sharan, you're so passionate about that, and that really shows in films, I think that'll definitely lead you the way to more ventures and future projects as well. But on that note, really happy that Mr. and Mrs. Mahi is doing well, and I think it's so It was such a beautiful film. I honestly really enjoyed it. I think I need to go again to give it a watch. It was it's got that rewatchable factor which I've not had from a non-Karan Johar directed film or any other sort of movie for a long, long time. So, it just goes to show your hard work and your passion for the story as well, and the whole team as well.
Yes, sure. Absolutely.
And also, it's great that Dharma and Zee Studios have worked really well together. They had that with Good News and with Kesari, films like Kesari and Good News before, and now Mr. and Mrs. Mahi, Gunjan as well. So
yeah, Dhadak as well was a big success. So,
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, Dhadak 2 is coming out. I'm very excited.
It's been a good partnership.
It's going to be fantastic. Absolutely. But look, thank you so much, Sharan, for joining me on Filme Shilmy and choosing us as your first UK interview. It's such a big pleasure to have you, and wishing you all the very best.
Thank you so much, Anu. Very nice chatting with you, and hope we connect soon in the future.
Definitely. No, for sure. Thank you so much.